carnage. Okay, if you've ever been shopping for a screen protector, you'll notice something really strange about them, in that it doesn't seem to matter how much you spend. You can find one for 60 cents that claims to do the exact same thing as a $40 one. Like, if both of these protectors actually are high endurance, smudge resistant tempered glass, and they're made for the same phone, who would ever buy this one, let alone give it a positive rating? So I thought, let's dig a little deeper. I've got 3 screen protectors in front of me right now. We've got a $1 tempered glass one, unbranded. We've got a $40 tempered glass one from a company called Spec. And we've got an $80 sapphire screen protector from a company called Shellrus. And thanks to Surfshark VPN, who sponsored this video, we've also got 3 brand new iPhone 12s to test them on. So, the first one doesn't actually look as bad as you'd think. It does have the words Nuke Copyright Brand French on it, which is mildly concerning, but opening up the box you realise we're actually getting 2 protectors, as well as all the other bits you might need. So, I grabbed the first iPhone, opened it all up, I disinfected it, and then just lined the protector up and stuck it on. Boom. Now, for 40 times that price, as you'd expect, you are getting some slightly more reassuring packaging, with no alarming spelling mistakes, but you are only getting one here. Like, $40 for one sheet of glass. I guess the one saving grace is that if we grab our iPhone, what we do also get is this template tool, which basically applies the protector for you. And that just leaves us with the $80 one. It actually says on the back that this is made from 99.99% pure sapphire, and that this means it's supposedly a 9 on the hardness scale, versus normal glass which sits at a 6. But this is a confusing thing because that's exactly what these other 2 say. Both of these screen protectors, the $1 one and the $40 one, they in no uncertain terms say that they are also level 9 in hardness. Anyways, we then get out our last iPhone and install the sapphire protector. I mean, for $80 you almost expect it to install itself, but I do appreciate these little alignment tools you get in the box. Okay, just before I started destroying things, I thought, right, we've got 3 completely different tiers of screen protectors here. Surely there'd be some sort of massive visual difference. But there isn't. Well, ironically, I actually think the $1 one is quite well designed. It's got a nice small single cutout for the earpiece, and that's it. No interruptions. The $40 one has this funky cutout up top, which I guess is there so you don't have unnecessary extra layers of glass on top of your cameras, but it's not the prettiest. And then the $80 one, to be fair, does look really good. It's got a similar design to the first one, but with the added benefit of edges that just kind of disappear into the phone. You'd be forgiven for thinking that there's nothing on here. It also possibly feels maybe a tiny bit silkier to the touch, but to be really blunt about it, at this stage, I wasn't really sure what I was paying for. And if you are enjoying this video, a sub to the channel would be spiffing. It doesn't look like any of them are restricting brightness, and if anything, actually the cheapest one had applied with the best result. Even with the fancy mounting tools of the more expensive protectors, I still got those little internal bubbles that I just couldn't get rid of. I even actually tried the sapphire one twice, just because I had a backup, same result. So, at this point, these 2 expensive ones, they've really got something to prove. Like, I'm thinking they better be really strong for me to even think about saying, yes, you should spend 40 to 80 times as much on them. So, I set up a little testing facility. Now, from my experience, the quickest way to scratch a phone is to put it right up against another phone. So I grabbed a 4th iPhone 12 and used the cameras on the back of it to simulate what would happen to these protectors if you jangled them around in a full pocket. And sure enough, the first phone did not like that. But what was kind of surprising, but also I guess at the same time exactly what you might have expected, is that the second protector, for 40 times the price, was just as scuffed up. The third, though, was not. In fact, after I'd given it a wipe, there wasn't a single mark on it. So, the sapphire is clearly doing something, but to try and put an exact number on just how strong each of these protectors is, I thought it's time to get out the hardness picks. There are a bunch of tools that are each rated from 1 to 9, and basically the higher the number, the greater that pick's ability to scratch. And you realize very quickly that these first 2 protectors are lying. So for example, with this first one, it was fine at level 4, level 5 didn't cause any damage either, but as soon as I got to level 6, this was enough to make noticeable scratches. Like if you look a little closer, I've actually drawn the number 6 on the right using a level 6 pick, and that 7 is what I managed to do with a level 7 pick. And you wanna know the sad part of this? The $40 one isn't really any better. it did seem a little bit more resistant. It was still being scratched at level 6, it was still being deeply scratched at level 7, but just slightly less deep than the damage on the $1 protector. But yeah, I mean, level 8 will still rip it apart. So, long story short, whatever is being said on the websites and the boxes of these protectors about them being level 9 in hardness is pretty disingenuous. It's almost the limitation of using glass as a material, at least, with our current level of tech. The Sapphire works though. Level 6 did nothing, level 7 did nothing. It was only at level 8 that I started to see a few very, very faint markings, and it took a level 9 pick, the hardest one I own, to be able to create a deeper gouge. That puts this screen protector just below diamond in terms of hardness. Now, the last thing left to do was a break test. If you dropped your phone, is spending more on a screen protector actually going to save it? This is probably the most important question to answer. And so, I actually spent a long time thinking about what's the best way of doing this? Because yes, in an ideal situation, I would drop all 3 phones from an identical height, such that they land in an identical way on an identical surface. But that's almost impossible to do. And if you do it that way, then just the tiniest bit of human error, like let's say holding the phone 2 centimeters to one side, might completely change the way that it falls. So I decided to start by keeping all the phones flat and hammering them. Hammer time! Go with the flow! The first hammer was from a height of 20 centimeters. I pulled back, let loose on each one of these screens, and pretty much nothing happened. The only one thing I noticed is that one of the scratches on the $40 glass protector had sort of turned into more of a crack. The other 2 seemed fine though. So I thought, okay, let's do a 40 centimeter hammer test. I really felt the impact of this one, and damage there was. Pretty much the same amount of damage on both the first and the second. Like, both phones were still working completely, but the protectors on top were cracked at the point of impact. And at this point, I'm genuinely shocked that the Sapphire one looks like nothing had actually happened to it. So I took it one stage further. This last test was really just for a bit of fun, just because I was curious to see what the Sapphire could do. So I grabbed the biggest, heaviest brick that I could find. Not that one, this one. Nearly dropped it on my feet, and proceeded to get out the first phone. The reason I picked this brick was because it was so flat and heavy that I could make sure it landed on all of them in a consistent way. So, this is what happened with the $1 protector. Carnage. It's absolutely destroyed. The entire top left part of the screen is gone, and the rest of it might as well be. It looks like it's been shot. And I realized when I picked it up that, as well as the front, the back of the phone has had an absolute mare as well. Any guesses about the second phone? Well, pretty much an identical result. Yes, the damage is different. Here it's more the bottom of the screen that isn't turning on, and the other parts that are having a seizure, but it's the same level of damage. And so, there's a very obvious takeaway here. You don't need to spend $40 on a screen protector. Yes, you may get fancier packaging. Yes, you may get a tool that helps or, let's be honest, sometimes hinders the application process. Fundamentally, either way, you're buying a sheet of glass, and really a sheet of glass that probably cost 5 cents to make, if that. I think a lot of these companies are just taking advantage of the fact that people aren't willing to take a risk on their shiny new phone. They're very aware that because you might have just spent $1,000 on this device, that they can justify charging $40 for something that protects it. But just know that that's not what it's worth. Okay, the final thing left to do was to just put our good friend Sapphire through the brick test. And I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what to expect. I think some part of me thought, well, it's survived everything so far, it'll probably survive this too. Well, actually, it kinda did. It's still pretty beaten up, don't get me wrong, but this is the only phone that's still somewhat fit for purpose. I peeled off all the screen protectors, and if you look at all 3 phones now, this one definitely has what I'd call a tier less damage done to it. Probably still not safe to use, but at least technically usable. So I hope this was useful. This is not to say that glass screen protectors are bad. I would probably recommend a glass one to 99% of people. But what it is to say is that if you are going to buy a glass one, you don't need to spend a crazy amount of money on it. But if you just so happen to want to spend a crazy amount of money on a screen protector, then go for Sapphire, because it is actually better. Okay, Surfshark VPN. Probably sound like a broken record at this stage, but there's one reason why Surfshark VPN is the only channel sponsor that I've worked with continuously. See, there are a lot of companies out there who want to sponsor tech YouTube channels. I've had other VPNs, I've had shaving companies, I've had makeup brands. But Surfshark is something that I just genuinely think is good value. There are a lot of VPNs out there that charge literally $30 a person a month. This costs just over $2 a month for everybody. And you still get the same anonymous, secure internet browsing, and the ability to access sites that are usually restricted to other parts of the world, like the US version of Netflix. Also, I mostly use this on my Mac, so it's cool that with one tap on the bar at the top, I can quickly connect to the last server I was connected to. When people ask me which VPN I recommend, even in person, this is what I say. So check the link in the description, and there is a code BOSS, which will give you 83% off and an extra 3 months for free. Thank you so much for watching. My name is Aaron, this is Mr. Who's the Boss, and I'll catch you in the next one.